My top horror movies for 2024. I have chosen my top 13 because I like that number and I think it's fitting. There's a few different things I'm looking for as far as what qualifies as good movies for me for my ratings. I'm looking to see if it's scary, how are the visuals, is it a unique story, is it entertaining, and did it give me something to think about outside of just watching the movie or not. So this is a mix of them. It was very, very hard to try and put them in order, so eventually I did do a rating system and then also a feelings system to get them in order. Before I get started, I wanted to shout out my honorable mentions for the year. Y2K, Exuma, Heretic, Lisa Frankenstein, and Azrael. There's also many that I just did not have a chance to see that I really wanted to see, or I couldn't find them. So this is my list. Coming in at number 13, Beetlejuice. Nostalgic, one of my favorite childhood movies. Cosplayed as Lydia twice and Beetlejuice. It was such a fun movie. It did justice to the first one. It was everything I needed it to be. It was very funny. Obviously, it's not scary. That's why it's at the end of the list. But I enjoyed it, seeing it in theaters, seeing all of the nostalgic elements that just made me smile. Coming in at number 12, Cuckoo. It's part of the reason I ended up making a top 13 because Cuckoo was still just in my head. It was a weird movie, but I really enjoyed how it was shot, where it was shot, the setting of the movie, the reason it ends up towards the end. It wasn't super scary. It did have some pretty good thrills and cool visuals, but I feel like the meaning or the idea behind the Cuckoo wasn't super strong as to why everything was going on, but I still really liked the movie. Longlegs is also another reason I made a top 13 because it was still in my mind. The only reason it's not higher up in the list is because I think the first act with the detective work was a little slow. Osgood Perkins, like him as a director, it started off so slow, even though I think this movie did a great job at being foreboding and eerie. And I love a crazy Nicolas Cage, so I just couldn't make a list without having him in it, just like he was in Dream Scenario last year that made my top as well. Longlegs had to make the list. Coming in at number 10, Maxine, finishing up the trilogy. Mia Goth, set in the 80s. It looks amazing. It looks more realistic versus all the Technicolor or just the super bright 80s that becomes costumes. It's not a scary movie, but I thought it was a good movie. I thought it was a good way to wrap up seeing Pearl and Mia Goth's character, Maxine, from X to Maxine. The ending was okay. And again, it wasn't scary, but I really enjoyed the world of Maxine. Coming in at number 9, Terrifier. The only reason it probably wasn't up higher is because the plot was thin. But it didn't matter that the plot was thin because it's such a fun movie. It's gory. It's not scary, but the fact that the endings of people are so creative and Art the Clown has so much personality, it had to be on the list. It's fun to see it in theaters. It's going to be a Christmas cult classic horror movie for sure, and I look forward to seeing what they do with another one. Abigail is next. I got to see the world premiere of Abigail at the Overlook Film Festival. It was so much fun to be in a crowd cheering and laughing and expressing themselves during the movie, hearing the director speak on it, the design of the vampires, the cast. Everyone had their individual personality. In movies like this, often the cast doesn't have a real personality. You're just waiting for them to be picked off one by one. Abigail went there. You can tell if you liked Ready or Not, how it just gets more and more intense, especially with the blood. One of the shots apparently took a week to shoot and it had 400 cameras. It was just a super fun time. And it had some pretty creepy shots as well. Strange Darling is one I went into completely blind, which is how I definitely think you should see it. It is a cat and mouse game. There's surprises. It's told in chapters. Just go in blind. It's very thrilling, but there is horror elements, but it is very thrilling. It keeps you on your toes. Even the more dull or slow parts are still intriguing. It's a unique take on sort of the prey and predator relationship and what that could look like and what type of privileges come to different types of people that fall into those roles. Next, we have The Substance. Finally was able to see it. I get the hype. For a sci-fi hybrid, it is definitely up there. Everyone did a fantastic job. The set designs in this movie are so grand and slick. You can't quite tell when it's shot. It looks like a mix of Art Deco, the 80s, mid-century, all of that. And I appreciate where it went. It had some amazing practical effects, and even more so, just a really good, honest portrayal of what it's like to age and trying to chase your youth and how you can become unseen as you age naturally, and how some things, even if your mind is sharp and you're doing a great job and you actually look great, you're just overlooked. And I appreciate it. What it did with it, it was very circular, but also showing the outcome of possible vanities. So, Substance is extremely solid. I saw the TV Glow. I know that may be a little bit controversial of a choice, and it's not a super scary movie, but I still had to have it on the higher end of my list because I thought about this movie for 2 weeks straight. I watched interviews, I listened to the podcast, the cast and the director speak on it. I did a full-length 10-minute video on it alone and everything I learned and what it can mean and symbolize, because while there are specific symbols, there's also a general symbol, and I think that's where the true fear is in the movie, of the fear of fear, the fear of not going for something. The liminal space is top tier for me. The nostalgia, the colors, the sets, looking like an old school TV show from the 90s of something I would have liked from Are You Afraid of the Dark or Goosebumps. It's right up my alley and in my generation, so it had to be up there for me. I just saw this movie last night, but it definitely had a good impact on me. Nosferatu. I was not a huge fan of Witch, and Lighthouse was just okay, so I didn't know what I was getting with this movie. I went in blind. I didn't see the trailer. I did not know Nicholas Hoult was in it. I also enjoyed Bill Skarsgård, even though it was hard to understand some of the things he was saying with the voice that he used. The cinematography looks like fine art photography. It's an ode to the original one. I can tell in the shadows and some of the framing that German expressionism that the first one had, I believe, the abstractness. It's a gorgeous movie. The only reason it's not higher, it was very long and some of the monologues never ended. As a person that writes poetry and likes words, I enjoyed the dialogue of this movie. Practical effects, gross, had some actual scary scenes. And it had some very humorous scenes. I had tears in my eyes. I had to control myself, whether they were meant to be scary or not. I was in stitches. Very solid for the fourth, I believe, remake. Well, as the fourth film, Nosferatu World. They also used real rats that were trained for some of these scenes, and part of this movie was even filmed in Transylvania. And it was filmed on film. Bonus points for all of that. Coming in third is Late Night with the Devil. I enjoyed the ratio, the color, the audience participation, us being in the audience, feeling like we were actually at the show. It didn't follow a regular linear movie as far as cuts. You really see it as though it is a found footage behind the scenes taping and also the real taping of a midnight special It did get a little jumbled towards the end, and that's why it's probably not a little bit higher, but I enjoyed this movie so much. The practical effects, I know it had one AI scene that didn't really bother me to like boycott the movie or disown it. It was a fantastic movie. It slowly ramps up, but I just found it really interesting more than anything and effective. I recently saw Infested, and it also had a profound effect on me because I think it's actually scary. That is why it is in my number 2 spot. It's these French kids, basically from the hood, living in an apartment building. They get trapped. It is what I wanted Sting to be, literally people trapped in an apartment building. You care about the characters enough. The soundtrack of French hip-hop music is so good. I was Shazamming almost every song. Properly scary. The spiders look good, unlike Sting. It was actually scary. I had the creepy crawlies. I just went outside to pull up my trash can and I saw spider webs, and it made me think about the movie. So it definitely sits with you a little bit, especially if you have feelings towards spiders. Coming in at number 1, Smile 2. It was better than the first one. I didn't think I was going to like it as much based on the trailers. I didn't know how it was going to work from this pop star element. It was a very stressful movie to watch. It started off slow and started building and building. I do think it was probably the scariest movie of the year. Only 4 or 5 movies on my list would I say were scary movies per se, like through and through, true horror movies, not horror / artsy / drama / sci-fi, just horror movies. And I appreciate them for going there. I know there's going to be another one. I don't know what that will do. I know he's not interested in doing mass hysteria sort of Smile. It'll still be a movie about people. And to say he was a first-time director with Smile, and it was that good, I look forward to seeing the rest of his career. That is my top 13. Again, there's a lot of good movies that technically didn't make the list that I'm very fond of. Didn't get to see everything. What were some of your favorite movies for the year? And thank you for watching.